Hello there, it's Dr. Charis Chambers, also known as the Period Doctor, and I am here with Fund 2 at the National Medical Association's annual convention. You know, we're talking and we're touching on Black maternal health, certainly, and we all have our own maternal health stories and journeys, and so I want to invite each of you to just share a little bit about that so that, you know, we get a better idea of just where we stand in this process. I'm going to share as well. So do you mind starting, Ijeoma?
My name is Ijeoma. I am the co-founder of Birth by Us and a medical student at UC Davis. And although I haven't experienced childbirth myself, my journey in maternal health essentially started with my family's experiences and my professional work as a perinatal health researcher, as a maternal health innovator, and as now the co-founder of Birth by Us. But what really started my maternal health journey is my hearing about my mother's near-death experience with my little sister. And so that essentially fueled me to be dedicated to improving maternal health in the U.S., as well as building a tool that I can use with my patients, a tool that I wish my mother used when she was going through her pregnancies, and hopefully something I can use when it's time for me to grow my family.
That is beautiful. Oh, Dr. Perk.
How much time you got? No, I'll be as brief as I can. So I became pregnant with my daughter. They call it geriatric pregnancy now, which really bothers me, but it was advanced maternal aging. So I was 37 years old when I got pregnant with my daughter, and normal first trimester, but around week 23 or so, ended up having to get an emergency cerclage and had to go on bed rest. As a working physician, you're like, what? I ain't got time to lay down for what? How? What? How am I gonna see my patient? Who's gonna see my patient? And the first thought I had actually is I called my clinic and told them I couldn't do Saturday clinic. I was floored. That was my first thought, right? Emergency cerclage at 23 and 5. So, you know, that's on the edge. I probably shouldn't have one. Most people wouldn't have done it, but my MFM was amazing. On bed rest for about 2 months. And then I also found I had gestational diabetes. So I'm laying down and I can't have sweets. So you take all the good things away. But I was able to manage that without being on insulin. And then she decided that she did not want to come head first. So then she was frank breech. So head and feet at the top, that's what that means. And so with my journey, when it was time, I had this plan. I was gonna birth in a water, have a water birth with a midwife and a doctor, and I was gonna do all these things. And so I had to change the plan. And so when she wouldn't turn, and she was big because I had gestational diabetes, so I thought she was gonna be a chunker. And so we ended up having a primary C-section, which was what I didn't want, right? Who wants a C-section in your first baby? I did not want that. I was very upset. But decided, I had a Black female physician, and we decided that's what was best. And it was planned, so not emergent. So very lovely process. So that was my birth story. Happy, healthy, 5-year-old baby girl, and she has been my world since then. So that was that journey. And then there's a second chapter, but we don't have a lot of time for that. So maybe I'll bring that up some other time. But that was my maternal journey, and it ended up successfully. And for me, that's all that matters.
Yeah. For me, most of my, I guess, maternal health, or even I would guess fertility journey, and was before I got pregnant, as far as like how I viewed becoming a mother. So when I was in residency, I was in my second year of residency, ended up going to the doctor for something completely unrelated, and my blood pressure was elevated. So they did baseline labs, and they saw that my creatinine was 2.3. And they said, well, how long have you had kidney disease? I said, again? I don't. And they did an ultrasound that showed basically the ultrasound showed that the kidneys were hyperechogenic on both sides, which is consistent with chronic kidney disease. Again, I'm 27. I'm in residency. I don't work out 6 days a week, but I work out, I'm healthy. And so I'm just like, how is this possible? And one of my attendings at the time was a fertility doctor. I kind of found out about it. 'Cause the thing is, when you're in residency, you work all the time. Everyone knows everything. Just like your first kind of thought was to call your clinic, I'm telling my colleagues, right? Because someone has to cover for me. That's our life. The attending said, you should probably freeze your eggs before you get too sick. And I'd had this diagnosis for maybe a week. I was still figuring out what it meant. And I was like, why is too late? And so it brought up for me a fragility of fertility that I had not previously even considered. So I started looking into it, and ultimately people with kidney disease by nature is chronic and progressive. And so as it persists and as your kidneys stop functioning, if you're building up toxins and not getting dialysis, there's a lot of shifts in your body that do make just normal periods difficult. And so that can impair your ability to even get pregnant. And then there's the component of like, if you do get pregnant, are you healthy enough to continue the pregnancy? Increased risk of preeclampsia and all the things. And I felt like I was just hit by like a ton of bricks. And I remember just sobbing. I was like, I don't even like a partner right now. What is even happening? And just kind of considering, what does this look like? And so I have a very strong faith background. And so I leaned heavily into that, and prayed so deeply and so often about it, and just decided to walk by faith. I made a little discussion with myself. I read some articles and decided I would freeze my eggs at 34, because the articles showed that if you froze your eggs at 34, you're most likely to actually use them, and there was like meaningful benefit. If you did like 22, you might not even eat those little eggs. You might waste your time. So, I'm trying to be efficient and cost. So I said, okay, if by 34, I haven't had my children, I haven't, met my fertility desires, I'll freeze my eggs. At 34, I did it. Now, in the meantime, the beautiful part of the story is that my kidney disease never worsened. I never figured out why it was there, but it never worsened. And every doctor I saw through all of my academic training, they're like, oh, I'm going to figure this out. They never did. And we're just confounded. They're confused because they're like, it's supposed to get worse. And I said, thank you, Lord, So anyway, 34, I decided I'm going to freeze my eggs. Didn't realize that after I decided that I would get engaged like months later. So when I'm giving myself shots, with this ring on my finger. And I was like, this is misleading. But it was my plan anyway. And luckily my husband, my fiance at the time, was very supportive, because he knew I wanted to be a mother. He wanted to be a father. He's like, however we have to do this, we're going to do it. It was beautiful. So when we decided to actually try, I had a whole 1 year. Got pregnant like this. I said, no, God, what did you put me through all of this for? You don't know what your future holds. And so I thought it was just so interesting, because I spent about 9 years worrying about if I could, if I ever would, what it would look like, how hard it would be. I'd prepared my family, my in-laws, my husband. Oh, we've been dating 2 weeks, and I told him about the kidney disease. Like, in case you're gonna lie, let me tell you. And so it's remarkable how expectation and concern and what family members have been through, it affects us so much more than even just the time of being pregnant, of giving birth. And so I wanted to share that I am pregnant now. I'm halfway through this pregnancy. It has been glorious. It's been wonderful. And I'm so grateful, but I'm grateful for every day. Right. I'm grateful for every week. My dad now calls me. He's like, we 20 weeks now? Yes. He knows every week matters. And so, everyone's maternal health journey is so complex. People assume because I didn't have kids, I wasn't thinking about it. Or because I was in my career, I wasn't focused on it. No, I have desires outside of medicine. I'm a full person.
Let's talk about how blessed you are to have it. Like, a lot of people don't have that. I said there's a second part to my journey, and the fertility was a part of that, right? And so the fact that you were thinking about that at 27 is a blessing, and you found it incidentally for something that didn't even develop. Yes. But that's where the system fails, in that our Western medicine system is that we talk about pregnancy and fertility once you're pregnant. Right. We don't talk about infertility until you are managing an issue where you may not be able to have children.
So true.
We should be having this conversation way earlier, giving everyone should have the opportunity to consider if they want to freeze their eggs, right? Not just people that are afraid they won't be able to have children. And so you're very, very blessed, very favored in that way. And I'm glad we're bringing this up now because I didn't have that. No one had that conversation with me. And I was blessed enough to have Gigi, but if I wanted more, that's when now I'm having this conversation at 39. Right. And so then, as you know, the numbers change after that. And literally age is the only thing that affected my second chapter. And so you're so lucky to have had that. And I'm so glad that we bring this up because I think that's another conversation that we need to start having earlier. Everybody ain't Janet Jackson, y'all. You're not married to a sheik. You can't be you're not gonna be 52 or Naomi, so we need to be real and have real conversations about what the average Black woman has to manage in a journey. And so I'm so honored and happy that you brought that up. It's such a good topic and we need to be talking about it more.
Yeah.
How are you using technology for good?
This is a great question. We touched points throughout our conversation today, but with Birth by Us, we are trying to build a comprehensive new vision of what maternity care should be like, specifically for women of color. We're using a tool we're building a tool essentially that will empower birthing people, and we've already heard that it is, which is really exciting. Through 3 main metrics, which is 1, patient at-home patient monitoring, where moms get to know their symptoms, know their trends, know when it's time to call a physician, and also have the resources to know how to advocate for themselves. We are also building an online community led by mothers, where moms can tell their stories, tell their advice, as well as get continuous support throughout their prenatal and postpartum journey. And I say postpartum because, in research term, postpartum is 1 year postpartum. But when we talk to moms, they say, I'm forever in postpartum. So I'm really hoping that community continues to stay with moms so they can go back and feel connected to them and know that they're getting advice from moms from all different stages.
Yes.
And then lastly, what we're trying to do is create a Birth by Us hub of resources. So bringing together community organizations, birth workers like doulas and lactation consultants, and also bringing services that you would think that kind of after the fact, what we're hearing from mothers and you are probably thinking about now is that setting up your nursery and getting your list out for all the things you want for your new one. But the things that are really essential are being able to set up that lactation support, and that cleaning service and that meal prep service. Exactly. We want to have that taken care of for moms. Do this hub of resources or connect them to resources or community-based organizations that they will be able to help them get those resources depending on what their circumstances is financially. And so that's what our role is to build a comprehensive tool at the tip of mothers' fingers so they feel supported and they feel this continuation of support and not just siloed solutions and you're in there. So that's how we're using tech for good.
That is exceptional. I mean, I'm blown away by you. 1, because you work out 6 days a week. But also because you're doing this as a medical student. And I think it speaks to the opportunity that technology gives us to not just be in one lane. A lot of the times when we think about our training, of course, we've done the training. Training was what we thought we often just had to be doing at that time. If someone asked me what I was doing, I'm in medical. Exactly. That's it. It's no list. Like that, I don't have high, that's it. But I love that we can exist outside of that and really make a huge difference. So kudos to you for doing that.
And I think that's partly, and to be honest, I was hesitant to go through these different journeys, Bragg. Yes. And I felt pulled towards it because when I was talking to current medical students during the application process, even before that, they seem to be so unhappy. And I think it's because of just the constant taking away from their experience of just sitting down, studying, and just learning, consistent learning, but also you're getting a cohort of people who want to serve, who want to feel like they're making some type of impact on the communities that they're going into this journey to essentially serve at the end of it. And I knew that if I put this on hold, I would be taking a chunk of my heart. And I feel privileged actually by doing Birth by Us and being a medical student at the same time, because I get to learn and I also get to apply at the same time. And it allows me to feel fulfilled in so many different ways. And I really encourage other medical students to kind of think outside of this box that they have put us in for many years, and see how you feel pulled to serve, and see if it fits your current lifestyle. And if it does, don't be afraid to try it out and see what it looks like. And if you fail, that's okay. That's a learning experience. And I hope we learn more to fail and fail gracefully, and not necessarily take failure as something that will be a scarlet A on our foreheads for the rest of our lives. Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's like a lovely call to action.
Yeah.
If you are in the journey of getting to where you want to be, you're in a credentialing process, it's never too early to start making an impact. I think in medical school and in training, the whole thing is like delayed gratification, but they don't talk about the impact of delayed impact, right? It's like, I thought I was going to be doing more by now. Dr. Perkins.
So my heart is full. First of all, I have to I just listen to my heart. Maybe because I'm an educator, I'm like, oh, future is bright. And that's why I said it's nurturing you to be host to these kinds of meetings, because this is like an intergenerational sisterhood that's happening right now, right? I'm a medical educator, but I also like to educate my patients. And so when it comes to technology, what I'm doing is develop these curriculums for medical students, for community-based partners. And I decided that why are they the only ones who get this information? In family medicine, we take care of the gamut from babies to geriatrics. I love my 92-year-olds. I'm trying to steal the skills of how you stay healthy that long. But another thing we do is mental health. And in maternal journey, there's definitely a mental health journey that you go through. And I noticed that we will do the screening postpartum, do a little screening in the beginning, but there's not a whole lot through the middle. And so we developed this curriculum for our residents to be able to do some more checking in here and there. And so we are working with an app to potentially put this curriculum on an app so that the patients can ask themselves the PHQ-2 questions. They have any signs that we need to ask more questions, and they'll ask a few more and then let them know whether or not they should go to the doctor for how they're feeling. Because oftentimes mental health isn't looked at as real health, in our communities. We take it to the altar and we leave it there. But if you have to keep taking it, God put doctors here. Okay, this is what we're here for. And so we're hoping to be able. My goal is to continue to try to make curriculums that can be used by patients, because it's like you said, respect on both sides. It's a bi-directional education that's happening, medical education. And so with the work you're doing, that kind of shows that. And so hoping to be able to share that curriculum more broadly for our patients and help get that curriculum on other platforms.
I love that. I feel like you touched on a really good point. So the leveraging of technology, I think from both sides, allows us to share things more broadly, to streamline things, and to certainly impact larger amounts of people in the community. And so my use of technology is social media. That's something I've been doing for 5 years. It's just like, when I started it from a place of frustration. And I say that because I was frustrated that I would enter into these patient encounters. We've got 25 minutes, right? I'm already getting in trouble because I spend too much time with patients. And I know that there's something that they need me to explain. I know I can explain it, but I'm running out of time. And I know that if I explain it today, it makes tomorrow better. It means they might be more compliant with this medicine or more likely to take it because they understand it. They actually get it. They're not just confused as to, well, they just said to take. No, let me tell you about the physiology of your body. Let me tell you about the pathophysiology, or what we think is not quite working right, and how this mitigates that, or how it gets you closer to the goals that you already told me were important for you. Right. And so I was frustrated because I started to have to say the same things over and over again. It'd be as simple as explaining what a period is. Yeah. And I would have a grandmother saying, why don't they just tell us this? Well, no one ever said this. Or I've been coming to this clinic, this practice, And no one has ever explained it like you. And I think part of that is because there is a misconception that us, like people that look like us, don't want to know these things, don't have a desire to know how a medicine works or how their body works. They just want you to give them medicine and get them out. No, not only do we have a desire, but we are capable of making different choices when we are presented with a comprehensive background. So many studies have shown that. And so anyway, I started my social media so that I could explain these things. Explain these things to take longer so that someone could say, well, actually, there's a video about how to choose the right birth control, or there's a video about what a hysterectomy is. And so I found that my energy was better used. It could be scaled if I made that video, and I could reach more people in that video than I could if I had an appointment every 15 minutes for the rest of my life. And that speaks to challenging some of the traditions of medicine, challenging some of the things that give us, pause or make us frustrated, and being creative about changing what it looks like for the future. Right. We are running out of time. We've had a robust conversation, but I do want to give you both an opportunity to bring up something or touch on something, a question that wasn't asked, or a point that you think could be added to this conversation that would give value.
Looking at me, so I guess I'm deaf. So this is a touchy one, but I think it's important for us to think about. And I'm trying to find like the words to best explain it, but the best way to explain it right now is the double hurt. I call it the double hurt, like, because when you think about Black maternal health specifically, we hear about the horror stories of deliveries in hospital systems and doctors kind of failing the Black woman. And then we're Black women, right? And sometimes you walk into the Black maternal health space, and because you're a Black doctor, sometimes, like you said, people who look like us, our sisters may be looking at you like, oh, I had a bad doctor. I'm never going back to a doctor. Right. I'm going to birth at home. Not going to give you a chance to kill me. That hurts, right?
It hurts so bad.
So you feel this hurt from, being afraid for your own life. I did my first will and testament when I found out I was pregnant, because I found out I was pregnant in 2019 in the midst when Black women dying from birth was the headline. Okay, so I was afraid for my life. And then coming back and having my Black my Black patients being like, I'm going to deliver with a midwife. I don't want to come into the healthcare system. And so that hurt too. Yes. And so I don't think we're talking about what that feels like, how we embody that, how we hide it behind the white coat, and then, even when we take the white coat off, it's still there. Yeah. So that's something I want us to talk a little bit more about, dig into, and be real and vulnerable about what that feels like.
It felt crazy because I was in training from 2014 to 2018 when this conversation was coming to the forefront in OBGYN training. And it felt like a kind of like a cognitive disconnect to say, I'm watching Black moms die, but I want to be a Black mom. I know I want to be a mother. How can I have that desire so strongly within me, knowing what I know? And I'm currently halfway through my first pregnancy with a little boy. And I remember talking with my sister my first trimester. I'm so anxious. Oh no, I cry all the time. But I was so anxious because I knew all the bad stuff. So admittedly, it's real. And I knew all the scary things. So the part I don't know is the best part.
Yeah.
And so my sister took time to tell me about all the best parts. She was like, when you walk in and wake them up, and they smile at you as if you were the best thing that's ever happened. I was like, I don't know. When you look at them for the first time and then you look at your partner, you're like, we made this. We did this. We made this. Or when you feel them kick for the first time, and you know that life is happening within you. And so it's the double hurt is knowing so much. Imagine. I'm so knowing so much about all the bad things and all the things that can go wrong, having seen and navigated emergencies and not had yet the benefit of the beauty of creating life, the beauty of motherhood that we as Black women deserve. Yeah. And not having that balance to counter that. And so And you brought up the double her. I mean, my emotions started climbing. And I said, well, this is going to go left. Because it's real. And I felt it before I even got pregnant. I felt it with just the desire to want to be a mom in this climate. Yeah. And it hurts because you're also a provider. And you're seeing people who don't trust you and don't trust your intentions. And you kind of get it to a certain degree, but you're like, I actually fought to be here so that I couldn't.
I can't for you.
I'm here for you. I am you. I am you so much that I am hurting. It's a remarkable thing. I don't think it's something that we can fully unpack, but I thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Shall I ask you?
Oh my God.
Sorry.
No, that's so important. I think that I can just speak to someone who wants to be a mother in the future and already feeling like I have to be prepared. I have to know everything. Yeah. I have to do things perfectly in order to have a chance at having such a successful birthing experience and after-birth experience. Yeah. And I think that maybe it's a type A in me, or maybe it's because
all of us have a little bit.
Maybe because I know too much. Maybe it's because I'm building birth bias. It's everything that I'm doing now is essentially, I think, in the back of my head in preparation of when that time comes, I will be ready. Yeah. I will have my crew. I will have the tool that I think that I will need at that point in time, and things have to go well because I'm prepared. But then also having a side of things, knowing that I can have everything be perfect and still have no control and still be 5 times more likely to suffer complications than my white peers who may not go on the same educational track that I've been through, who may not like work out every, 6 days a week that I have. And, sometimes, there are moments of feeling defeated. And I can only imagine what people are feeling now, while we're still in the midst of the critical crisis that we are in currently. And I think as a physician, as a student who knows the practice I will be going into, I am trying to arm myself emotionally, educationally, but also just having the resources in the back of my pocket to know that when that moment comes, just accept it. Accept that I am enough. I've done enough. I've surrounded myself with people who I trust. Yes. And I also want to get to the point where I've catched enough babies. I have been through enough C-sections where I know the process. I know it front and back, and I'm not worried. And I want to feel that relief, but also create that relief for my patients. And so, I think I can just speak from that perspective as someone who is working towards that and essentially want that eventually.
I love that determination and that commitment to create that space and to create a place of relief and respite for patients. I think that's the whole point of taking off the white coat. Right. I don't know, when we get to medical school, we had that white coat ceremony. It's such a symbol of accomplishment for a lot of people. But it can also be a heavy thing to carry. And it can also be a bit of a mask when it comes to how we navigate this world. And, when I'm showing up for patients, I don't want to cry. I'm like, I got to be confident. I got to be strong. I have to be all these things. But sometimes they need us to take it off. Yeah. They need to see the humanity in us. They need to see that, to know it's like, I am you. I am here for you. I feel what you feel. I am deserving and desiring of respect like you are. I'm deserving and desiring of a full life like you are. And so I think that's what I think about when I think about the idea of taking off the white coat. Even just taking it off to nurture ourselves, to pour into ourselves. We can pour into our community with the white coat on or without. We're not limited in that way. But I think medicine has put so much on that white coat. And sometimes when we remove it from the conversation and from the picture, we get the most authentic and raw versions of ourselves.
And maybe it's not physically taking it off.
Yeah.
You dropping a tear with that like colon is a way to disarm.
Yes.
And to create that safe space. But you're absolutely right. I just participated in my first white coat ceremony this last week, where I was actually, putting a white coat on them. And it was empowering, but to your point, it's like a cape. You can fly with it, or you can hang yourself, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Like, we have to take it off sometimes, but we have to also know when to take it off, figure out the best time and with who, and but still be proud that we had it, because you did work pretty hard to get it. So I'm excited that we're even starting to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, me too. I think the safe spaces like this specifically, but also that the National Medical Association provides by allowing us to show up authentically and in these spaces, it gives us the opportunity to, we don't even have to really take off the white coat to be ourselves in these settings. We know that we are physicians, we're medical students, we're all one and the same. We see past it, we see our humanity. And for that reason, we can nurture each other and leave with our cups just a little bit more full. Yes. I would love for our guys to both let people know where they can follow you, where they can connect with you if they want to continue this conversation.
Yes. You can find Birth by Us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Birth by Us. You can also find us on our website at birthbyus.com, and we're now available in the Apple Store. So if you want to try our application out, just download us from the Apple Store, and we will be in the Android store soon.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm Dr. Charis Chambers. You can find me on Instagram at Period Doctor. You can also find me on Twitter and on YouTube at Period Doctor as well. And my website is theperiodoctor.com.
You can find me at BMH Equity and at Fund2 Foundation. Check out our NurtuHER Check-In, Check-Up series, where we talk a little bit more about maternal health and the subjects we've been talking about today. See you there.
So thank you. Thank you both for joining me today. This has been lovely. Thank you to the Fund2 Foundation for creating this space. And take care.